So, is there anyone who has been here before? Other than Mr. Prado? Some others, maybe? Okay. So once again, on behalf of the National Park Service, welcome to Flight 93. This is what we refer to as our map. Folks, please, come on over. Come on over. Even though he's an Orioles fan, that's okay. I love the Orioles. But seriously, this is where we love to start our programs. It's an orientation of this particular complex. So what we're going to talk a little bit is about the behind the scenes from a superintendent's perspective, and then bring around the history of how this incredible memorial was created. So it was determined very early on after 9/11 that one of the 3 attack sites would be a part of the National Park system, and that ultimately turned out to be this particular site. So on September 24, 2002, so just a little over a year, President George W. Bush signed this National Memorial into law. And folks, being in the Park Service for 40 years, I can tell you that it takes decades for any park unit to become part of the National Park system. This one, again, a little over a year. So at that point, it took a few years to kind of work together with the landowners. Ultimately, 2 coal companies and 5 private individual parcels were purchased by the families of Flight 93, and then ultimately sold to the United States government, forming this particular memorial. So in 2011, where we're going to go next, we refer to the plaza. That's down below here, where is the closest location you can get to the actual crash site itself. So that was 2011. This particular complex, the Learning Center, also known as the classroom, and then the visitor center. And trust me when I say, right on the other side of that wall there is our visitor center, which is incredibly powerful and extremely well done, if I may say so. So this was all done in 2015. And then you may have seen the Tower of Voices coming in on the left. That's the largest musical instrument in the world, consisting of 93 feet high, 8 columns with a total of 40 wind chimes. And so you'll notice here at Flight 93, everything is either in 40s or 93, as you can imagine. But I would be remiss if I didn't mention virtually everywhere you look, you'll see these angles on the flight path, which I'll talk about in a moment, here on the sidewalks, the glass. And what that is, it's to simulate the eastern hemlock tree. So when the plane came in directly above us, completely upside down, traveling at 563 miles an hour at about a 40-degree angle, when it hit the earth, it ignited immediately a hemlock grove, which happens to be the Pennsylvania state tree. So the architect, Paul Murdoch, in and amongst a design competition which garnered more than 1,100 entries, ultimately Mr. Murdoch's design was selected. But he really wanted to incorporate that hemlock grove because a significant amount of human remains were recovered by Penn State arborists in the canopies of these trees. Now the FBI, in their evidence response, they're incredibly talented, but they're not used to being in canopies of trees, swinging, collecting evidence, and human remains as well. So that's why when you walk, those veiled symbolism of that hemlock grove is throughout the entire memorial. As a matter of fact, the Tower of Voices itself, when you see the cross sections, it's to simulate a hemlock tree with its trunk with these very distinct angles, which you'll see versions of that inside the visitor center. So, if I may, let me take you back to September 11th, 2001. I was a chief ranger on the island of St. John, U.S. Virgin Islands, and I just by looking at folks, I don't have anybody, most likely less than 20, except these 2 gentlemen, less than 24. So we're coming up on our 24th observance anniversary. And so on that particular day, Al-Qaeda, our enemy, had already taken numerous flights, east coast to west coast, and watched the interaction of flight attendants and pilots and how they accessed the cockpit and so forth. So on that particular day, there were 2 flights taken from Boston, one from Newark, which was this aircraft, then American Airlines Flight 77 hijacked that came out of Dulles. All 4 of those aircraft were destined to the West Coast. Tuesday morning, in that day, very, very few passengers. So on this particular day, that first plane went into the first tower, and this timeline is very important, at 8:46. So think about it. Where were you when you first heard the news? I thought, many of us thought, okay, there was a medical emergency. Maybe a little Cessna went into that tower and so forth. But then at 9:03, just a few minutes after that, that second plane hit the second tower. Then we knew, without question, that we were under some type of a terrorist attack. At that time, Flight 93 was just coming into Cleveland airspace. And at 9:28, the 4 hijackers, all seated in first class, stood up, donned a red bandana, and proceeded, it's believed, to murder a first class passenger, a flight attendant, and then gain access into the cockpit, where Leroy Homer was the first officer and Jason Dahl was the pilot. It was reported through those phone calls, which I'll talk about, that both pilots were face down in first class, having been stabbed. And so at that point, it was designed where that pilot, the terrorist pilot, would take control of that particular aircraft. And on the flight data recorder, it shows a roughly 700-foot descent when that plane was taken over by the terrorist pilot. And this is really important because when that pilot accessed that cockpit, quote-unquote pilot, he picked up the microphone and he said, "They've met our demands, we're going back to the airport, go to the back of the plane." They went to the back of the plane. And at that point, they started to kind of put together what had happened in New York, because they started making these phone calls. So a total of 13 people made 37 phone calls to 911 operators, parents, spouses, loved ones, and so they were able to ascertain in real time what had happened in New York. 9:37. In real time, as I mentioned, they learned that 77 had hit the Pentagon. That's what really galvanized complete strangers. And they took a vote. What we take so for granted, and thanks to all of our military men and women here, because of your sacrifice and service, that we have the ability to have a democracy and to vote. But folks, they voted. And they put together, quote unquote, a game plan. Flight attendants boiling water to put in stainless steel pitchers. Individuals gathering soda cans, seat cushions to be used as shields. Taking a cart that they would use as a battering ram to go up that center aisle in all a matter of 26 minutes. So that was from 9:37. And then you may have heard Todd Beamer talking to Lisa Jefferson. At 9:57, after Todd Beamer had spoken with Lisa, an airphone operator in Chicago, "Tell my wife that I love her. Can you please recite the Lord's Prayer?" Which they did. And at 9:57, he said, "I have to go. We're getting ready to do something. Todd, don't hang up." He said, "I won't." And he placed that phone down on the seat cushion. And that's when she heard him say, at 9:57, "Okay, is everybody ready? Let's roll." And so it was 6 minutes from 9:57 to 10:03 that regular, everyday Americans and several from other countries came together, not Navy SEALs, not Army Rangers, not members of a SWAT team, regular men and women coming together to try and take back control of that airplane. And so they did. They went up through that center aisle. And Al-Qaeda referred to the individuals as the muscle, just 5 foot nothing, 100 and nothing. Folks, they didn't have a chance. And ultimately, the individuals made it to that cockpit door. How do we know that? because we recovered both the flight data recorder and the cockpit voice recorder. And you can pick up and actually read inside the visitor center what was being said by the two terrorists in the cockpit, and then what was being picked up in English. For instance, the terrorist saying, "Should we put it down? No. Let's wait till they all come." And then in English, into the cockpit, or we die." So one of the things, folks, that when you go into the visitor center, what I believe is one of the most powerful parts of that exhibit is an NTSB, National Safety Transportation Board's video that they put together of the last few moments of that plane, and it shows what the airplane is doing. You can see the gauges on the right. All at the same time, you can read both in Arabic, translated to English, what the terrorists were saying and what the American, in English was being said. And so right there at about 10:02 and 50 seconds, the pilot knew they were coming in, the terrorist, the murderer. When he was pushing that airplane to the left and the right to take them off balance, then a series of porpoising maneuvers to put them off balance, and at the very end, a very inexperienced pilot turned it to the right, and that's when it inverted. And ladies and gentlemen, that's when that plane was right in that direction, and it was traveling again 563 miles an hour directly over us, and that's why the architect wanted this to be the flight path. So where those folks are walking right now, directly above that airplane, from that direction, upside down, 40-degree angle, into that field where we're going to go right next, and you'll be able to come to the overlook, look out over the wall of names, and then look down at that 17.5 sandstone boulder. So I know that's a lot, and I know you folks are under somewhat of a time constraint, which is why I'm trying to put as much as I can. But it's really an amazing site. So back to the superintendency here. I've been here 10 years. Have tremendous relationships with a lot of family members. Some family members have never been here. Everybody grieves differently. And recently, Christian Adams, he was a sommelier from Germany. He was the #1 wine expert for exporting German wine. We had never heard from Christian's family ever. Up until about 2 years, I received an email from his brother, Bernard, who said he and his wife and 2 children were flying to New York and they wanted to come to Flight 93. So now we have a relationship with that particular family. We're working with the State Department to do oral histories with Christian's parents and so forth. So it really is an amazing place. A lot of sadness, a lot of crying, but at the same time, there's a lot of laughter, because what we try to do with our rangers and our ambassadors, our volunteers, is try and tell who these people were. And I think really the Park Service and our partners, I think we do an extraordinary job of bringing this story, connecting it to New York, connecting it to the Pentagon, and what happened on that particular day of 9/11. So I think if there are any questions right now, again, sir, in the interest of time, as you walk on the flight path, you'll notice lateral planks going this way. So the first one at that 8:46, and then flight 175 at 9:03, flight 77, you'll see the lateral plank right around here as you walk, and then flight 93's lateral plank is down right here at the wall of names. So before we go into the flight path overlook and then into the visitor center, I just want to kind of give, again, just an overall broad element of the phase 1 down below with the plaza, the wall of names, 40 individual panels for the 33 passengers, the 5 flight attendants, and the 2 pilots. So oftentimes people will say, every park superintendent has an email, and they'll say something to the effect, really angry, how dare the Park Service even mention the 4 terrorists' names and the country of origin. So that doesn't get an email from me, that gets a phone call from me to that individual. And I try to articulate that we tell the facts, we tell the stories of what happened, and we mention them one time. So technically there were 44 individuals on that plane, 37 passengers, 5 flight attendants, and 2 pilots. We acknowledge it one time. That's the story. That's exactly what happened. But obviously at Flight 93 we honor the 40, and that's what it's all about. And in the aftermath, they recovered roughly 8% of human remains, thanks to our coroner and other experts. And every single one of those 40 families, every one, whether it was through DNA, fingerprinting, or dental records, was able to have some semblance of their loved one. Some. Because folks, basically, experts say that plane hit so hard, and when it hit the earth, this was a reclaimed strip mine. So when it hit a head wall, and it accordioned on itself. So basically, coroner would say human beings vaporize. With all that jet fuel that was on board, again, the reason our enemy chose those transcontinental flights, because of all that jet fuel. They knew. And the last thing I'm going to leave you with, when I came here in 2015, one of my orders from my regional director was bury the wreckage of Flight 93. What does that even mean? It took us 3 years with the military, 458th Engineering Battalion out of Johnstown, the families, United Airlines, archivists, a bunch of other partners, FBI. We came together, and in October of 2001, the FBI concluded their investigation and evidence recovery, and they turned it over to the crime scene, to the coroner. But they filled up 5 40-foot shipping containers of the plane, of which more than 90% was recovered. And they put them in these these shipping containers, and sent them up to Hartford, Connecticut, to an airport where United Airlines insurance company had a lease for such situations. So those containers sat there until 2018, when we went there, and on our hands and knees we went through every single piece of that airplane. Now, when that first came to be, I said to the families, or I said to my team, do we want to sift through everything or just take them as is, build a slightly larger container and bury it? I said, I'm not going to make that decision. So I went to the families, and within 3 days they came back to me, their executive board, and they said, Steve, we'd like to go through the wreckage one more time. So we all signed non-disclosure agreements. It was very secretive, but the first week of March 2018, we went to Connecticut. We went and through every single one of those containers. First week of March, first week of April, we found 8 bones, 3 of which were animal bones, but 5 were human bones. I distinctly recall holding a part of someone's spine, and other bones that we recovered. And we found 8 objects that were personally connected to either the flight attendants, the pilots, or the passengers. Joey Nackie's Sears card, Lorraine Bay's J.C. Penney card, Captain Jason Dahl's Visa card. Just unbelievable things that, not that the FBI missed, but it was still inside that wreckage at the time. So we took those objects, we contacted every family member, we sent an FBI agent, one of our special agents with the Park Service, to those homes to offer that object to the families. And 7 families said, thank you for doing that. We'd like the Park Service to keep it in perpetuity. But the Nackie family asked to keep Joey's Sears card, which of course we obliged. And it was again, what happens when you're dealing with something so raw, so recent in time. So on June 21st, 2018, we buried that wreckage, consolidated from 5 down to 4, just directly adjacent to that boulder. And for the most part, that's where we are to this day.
there's an arrow somewhere going the wrong way.
Wow, it's huge.
Field. Where? So what I've been told before
Oh yeah,
is that
oh, they
beyond
can't.
that fence right there,
Okay.
they don't
Oh,
let the
they
public go out there.
they use a
but
rack
the
and put it
fence
there.
is
Okay.
there.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
wow.
there's a gate right there. I don't know if you can see the gate.
Yes.
The white
Well,
walls.
they just put it right here as symbolic.
Just unbelievable.
So that's all the wall remains that goes down.
I'm sorry.
The wall remains.
No, the wall needs just the white.
Oh,
These
that's
white
that's
things
the
right
white.
there.
Oh,
These are
okay.
just stuck up.
Okay.
That granite down there, that's just a barrier.
Just a border.
Yeah,
Okay.
just a border. But I mean, they had all kinds of. My understanding is they had all kinds of equipment out in there and stuff that was doing excavations and
Oh, I can only imagine.
just unbelievable.
A rare opportunity where we got to meet somebody.
Yeah, so even as the superintendent here, I don't go to the boulder. It's kind of an unwritten understanding between the Park Service and the families that that boulder is reserved only for family members. And if a family member wishes to bring someone to the boulder, that's certainly fine. So last year, this group happened to coincide with Debbie Borza's visit, whose daughter, Diora Bodley, was the youngest person on Flight 93. And Debbie just happened to be here and asked if the group was interested in accompanying her to the boulder. So something really, really special, very, very unique. I can share with you that on a couple of different occasions, you may recall back in 2018 with those 11 homicides at the Tree of Life in Pittsburgh at the synagogue. So at one point, the rabbi there reached out to me and said, we are in the process of building a memorial. We would like to learn from what happened here with the families and how it evolved. So we brought the congregation out here, the leadership, and Gordy Felt, whose brother Edward was on the plane. Gordy took that group of about 15 to the boulder, and they went to the boulder and they prayed. They prayed in Hebrew. So I just kind of stood back and just watched that interaction. And about a month and a half later, Frank Siller with the Tunnel to Towers was here with a lot, maybe a dozen New York firefighters, Shanksville Fire Department, other people from this community, and 2 other family members, and they went to the boulder. So now there were about 100 people at the boulder. and they all got on their knees and they said the Our Father. So within a month and a half, just me witnessing this incredible place that brings religion aside, everything aside, it's about our country and it's about working together and really caring and loving one another. So that's what this place does, and it's really something that's really unique and very, very special. And I can tell you the military, I don't know the Marines and the Army and Air Force and Navy and the makeup, but you're all incredible. But we have had tens of millions of dollars worth of work conducted with the United States military, these engineering battalions. The only thing they ask us for is to pay for their diesel fuel. And I swear, you can't make this up. And so remember I talked about burying the wreckage? It was thanks to the military who did all the work, all the excavation. And when United Airlines pledged $1 million in cash to do the job, I had to write up a line item, a budget. And I took $300,000 just for the excavation to prepare these containers. So the military came in, again, I had $300,000, and they took care of it. So then I called back United to their lawyer in Chicago. I said, hey, Javaria, I said, I don't need the whole $763,000 because the military, she goes, stop right there, Steve. No, we don't want any money back. You know, so it was just United's way of pitching in, because they had pledged years ago that they would support burying the wreckage. So it's just stories like that people coming together to do the right thing. And one thing before we go into Visitor Center, I want you all to see this common field, one day a field of honor forever. So that was actually coined at a Super Bowl party in San Diego. So you had this gives me chills just thinking about it, but you had a Los Angeles Fire Battalion Chief for LA City Fire who was hosting that party. And then a buddy of his, also a battalion chief for LA Fire, came in, and Susie Bird was crafting and doing a quilt for each attack site. And she went out to her guests and she said, if anybody would like to come back and write on the note and so forth, a message to New York and the Pentagon in Flight 93, please feel free to do so. So Stephen Ruda, sight unseen, came up with that. A common field one day, a field of honor forever. It was received by the curator. Something just clicked in her mind. And when it came time for a preamble to the mission statement, she goes, I got it. And that's what it is to this day.
Steve, I'm not sure if this is, so we've been coming out here since 2008. I mean, that's when Simplify Odyssey started, and we make a trip out here. When we first came out, it was just like, I think it was just a little white building with a fence up. And we would come up here in the overlook, because obviously we couldn't go down there, and then now it's evolved into this. I mean, it was just a fence where people would hang little trinkets or coins or what have you. But we've been coming out here, bringing veterans out here. A lot of you guys and gals serving for the right reason.
Yes, sir.
Just to reflect, which is really important to do. Reflect in a positive way, right? Pay homage, maybe tickle a memory, but also reflect and be thankful for what we have. And that's what's great about coming out here.
Yeah. And sir, that temporary memorial was right to the right of that tree. And you can see, I know it's all kind of, but you see that parking lot there, kind of in the grass?
Yes.
Down there. So there is a trail which we call the Trail of Remembrance. You can see some of the benches. So it takes you to that exact location. And guess who built the trail? That would be the engineering battalion. For nothing. So again, it was our opportunity to give back, because so many people say, hey, I was here back then and there was a chain link fence. So when we decided to do it, I said, okay, we're not going to approximate where that was. I said, I want it exact. We had a metal detector. We found the exact sleeve where the American flag went in, and we knew that's exactly where it was. So if you go to the terminus of that trail, it has images of exactly what you would have seen back in the day when it was the only location of this 2,200 acres before all of this was built.
And so you say those connexes are buried out here?
They are. So those 4 Connex boxes, we wanted to have it directly adjacent to the boulder in that grass field, but the water table did not support that. So when we did test digs, 2-3 feet filling up, so we had to go right to the left. You see that little gap? That was an old power line. So if you go down that power line, maybe 150 feet and then to the left. So it's right on the other side, maybe 200, 300 feet on that tree line of where we were able to place the 4 containers.
There was some that I heard that if the plane had continued any further, it would have hit a school
Oh,
or
no
something.
question. Yeah. Fractions of seconds away, Shanksville K through 12 was literally less than a second away at that speed. And again, that just happens to be, that's absolutely right, sir. So again, and even the families, as amazing as they are, one was stated one time, it's so sad that our loved ones had to die, but if they had to die, I'm glad that it was here because of the community coming together that instant, bringing water and cookies and lasagna for the troopers, and it's just a great place. I live 10 minutes from here. Like I say, I've lived all over the United States and the Virgin Islands, and I just love Western Pennsylvania, the people, the cultures. It's just really, and they love. When I say they, I like to think all of us love our nation and our country, but it's really palpable in our communities and their love for the military.
So what we're gonna do now is, we typically don't go to the visitor center, but it's right here.
So again, bringing in that connection as well. Chloe?
Thank you all for coming out here today, and firstly, thank you for your service to this nation. I know Superintendent Clark and all of us here at Flight 93 National Memorial appreciate each and every single one of you for coming out here first today, but also for what you did. On board Flight 93, there were 4 veterans. There were passengers, John Talignani from New York. He was actually born in Italy on an Air Force base there. Also, passengers Patrick Joseph Driscoll and Bill Cashman were on board Flight 93. They were lifelong friends. Both had served their country. They were on their way heading out to Yosemite National Park that day on a lifelong trip that they had been dreaming about going on. Lastly, there was also First Officer Leroy Homer, who was actually the first officer, the co-pilot on board Flight 93, who also served in the military as well. So each and every one of them, like you summarized, each and every one of them making that ultimate sacrifice that day, but also noting those 4 veterans that were on board Flight 93. This memorial here, we honor each and every 40 of them in their own individual way, but also here at the Wall of Names, which hopefully you'll have a chance to check out as well. You'll notice it's one wall out there. While from here it looks like one wall, but when you get closer, you will see each and every one of those panels are individual panels to reference each of them, their own individual people acting as one that day to ultimately thwart the attack on our nation's capital, perhaps preventing this plane from reaching its target, which was either the U.S. Capitol building or the White House, but saving thousands of lives that day. So thank you for taking the time coming out here, honoring the 40, and for what you do each and every day for our nation. On behalf of myself, especially, thank you all for each and every one of you, and thank you for coming out here.
Thank you.
I stand corrected.
And lastly, Colonel, if I may.
It's Doug, yeah, please.
Colonel Doug?
Doug, that never made it to Colonel, but that's why.
Thank you, Doug. So Doug, I just thought that, again, really kind of capitalizing on what Chloe mentioned and Corey with his beautiful music, I wanted the group to leave here with, again, a token of our appreciation. And you can get that for me. And so behind me is our flag, and we have several flying throughout the memorial. When I arrived here back in March of 15, we had a little 3x5 flag for this flagpole. And I rounded up our chief of maintenance for Flight 93, who happens to be a United States Marine. And I said, hey, Pat, there's a little problem here. That 3x5 flag is way too small. I expect a 6x10 by the end of the week. Yes, sir, he said, and literally by noon the following day, we had a 6x10 foot American flag, 6x10, and it's flown ever since. So with that, I just wanted to, on behalf of the Park Service, as if the General were here, but to all of you, I wanted to present Doug with this very flag, who, Miss Chloe, if you could read the exact dates that this had flown over this very plaza.
This flag was flown at Flight 93 National Memorial from July 7th, 2024 to January 27th, 2025.
On behalf of the National Park Service and to each and every one of you, thanking you for your service, please present this to the General and to your incredible mission at Outdoor Odyssey. And thank you again, sir.
Okay, thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, no, thank you. Appreciate it. Hoorah. So we try to personalize connections. So all I'm thinking is form a more perfect union. Secure the blessings of liberty. So when last time I was out here last year, you know, we talked about we got to meet the family. This is the daughter of the mom. So I mean, it's real, right? And so we got to meet her mother out here, and she got an opportunity to thank you guys through other veterans while we were out here. So this is forming a more perfect union, right? And we try to capture that any way we can, right? So like the superintendent giving us a coin, something that's special to him that ties us back to this area. And General Jones's coin, tying a flag, right? Something that's bigger than us, having a purpose that's bigger than us. That's why we talk about the preamble. So it doesn't matter what the goal is you set. Walking the dog, doing the dishes, having dinner with your kids, right? Building a business, tying it back to the preamble that's bigger than us so we can secure the blessings of liberty. So Superintendent, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
It's much appreciated.
Thank you, everyone.
Ross, so what we're going to do is we're going to saddle up due to the time, and we're going to have to head out. So usually we come down here and we go down to the wall, but we had a special opportunity to go up to the visitor center today. So we're going to get in the shuttle and we're going to head back to camp. So at 6:30 tonight, that's when we have an opportunity to watch the Munchkins graduate,
Nice.
watch the special bond between the third graders and the high schoolers. Thank you for your sacrifice. Thanks, Corey. Now let's bring it in. Hey, everybody bring it in here real quick.